Item number 8, we have a public hearing this evening. That is hold a public hearing, waive the first reading, and introduce an ordinance of the City of San Bruno, adding Chapter 10.25 Reusable Bag Ordinance to regulate the distribution of single-use carry-out bags by retail establishments to Title 10 Municipal Services of the San Bruno Municipal Code.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, I want to make some brief introductory comments and then turn over the presentation to Lisa Costa-Sanders, who has been working with city staff to shepherd this ordinance and the program it represents through the city process. This initiative was first conceived, if you will, by the City Council a number of years ago, back in approximately 2008, when we began talking about sustainable initiatives, and the City Council determined that it wanted to move forward with the elimination of non-recyclable food, takeout food serviceware. And that initiative, as the Council is fully aware, was put into effect by the City Council in 2009 and ultimately with its effective date in the spring of 2010. At the time that the Council began this discussion and consideration and its overall strategy for sustainability initiatives, the Council identified an interest in, and particularly the discussion at that time was about plastic bags, but generally about single-use and non-recyclable products. At that time, the City of Oakland, and I believe the City of San Francisco, was being challenged on similar initiatives because they had not completed an environmental impact report. And it was the Council's interest and direction to staff. We keep our eye on this topic area and essentially wait and look at how this environmental impact report issue could be addressed. We came back to you in May of this past year, in 2012, with the initiative that has been shepherded by the county's Environmental Health Department. Dean Peterson, the director of that department, is in the audience tonight, and he'll be available to answer your questions and help you sort out the various issues associated with this ordinance as we move forward tonight. But it just would, again, identify that this issue came to you through you initially, and it is, although it's been a very, very long time, the effort to coordinate on a region-wide initiative presents certain opportunities and as well as potentially certain challenges as we move forward to promote sustainable initiatives throughout our county. So with that, I would ask Lisa to make some specific comments.
Thank you very much. Good evening, council members. The item before you this evening is consideration of an ordinance that would regulate the distribution of single-use carry-out bags at retail establishments. As City Manager Jackson just mentioned, the Council has long been concerned with the negative environmental impacts caused by the distribution of plastic bags, and the City has recently participated in the countywide effort to regulate single-use bags. This effort includes preparation of a uniform ordinance that would be adopted countywide by jurisdictions, as well as the City being included in the environmental impact report that was prepared by the county. The ordinance itself prohibits the distribution of single-use plastic bags and requires a minimum charge for the distribution of paper bags or reusable bags. And that minimum charge starts at 10 cents per bag and increases to 25 cents per bag in January of 2015. There are a few exemptions to the ordinance. That includes the use of produce bags, like you would maybe put your onions in, or your meat from that department, bags for prescription medicine, bags to segregate food or merchandise that could damage or contaminate other merchandise. Restaurants and takeout food establishments would also be exempted, as well as nonprofit charitable organizations. Also, the paper bag charge would not apply to customers that participate in the WIC program or food stamps program. This ordinance does further our NPDES waste reduction goal. We propose an implementation date of Earth Day, which is April 22nd, 2013, for the ordinance to take effect. This will provide stores time to utilize their plastic bag stock, purchase new reusable bags, and time to inform customers of this change. The City Council initially heard a presentation in May of last year, and we have several community outreach meetings planned to better inform retailers and customers, residents of these new regulations. An article was included in the fall focus edition, providing an overview of the proposed ordinance, and we've also mailed a letter to all retail establishments, inviting them to an informational meeting on January 16th at 9 a.m. at City Hall, and a residential informational meeting on January 17th at 6 p.m. at City Hall. If the City Council chooses to adopt the ordinance, staff will distribute informational materials to retailers, which will include flyers, tent cards for the cashier stations, and information on where they can purchase reusable bags. The County Department of Environmental Health staff will take the lead on enforcing the ordinance in San Bruno, as well as in all the jurisdictions that adopt the model ordinance, and this is at no cost to the city. County staff is here this evening to respond to any questions you may have. As I noted earlier, San Bruno was included in the environmental impact report prepared by the county that analyzes the impacts of implementation of the ordinance. No negative impacts were identified in the environmental impact report, and that document was certified by the county. Staff recommends that the council consider the resolution making the CEQA findings before you consider the ordinance itself. And I'd be happy to try to answer any questions.
Good. Before we open the public hearing, any questions from staff at this time? Ken?
Where does the 10 cents go?
The 10 cents would be maintained by the retailers to recover their cost of purchasing the bags, as well as we do have a reporting requirement where we're asking them to retain records of the sale of those reusable bags for a period of 3 years for the point of sale. So it helps cost recover that time as well.
And what is that? You know, and that's clear in the staff report. What are they trying to gather from this 3 years of reporting?
What data are we looking to gather?
Yeah, just the data, just how many bags gets, you know, or how many people.
And it's also twofold, and I'll have Dean Peterson answer the question relating to the information we're gathering, but it's also to discourage people from, you know, choosing to purchase that bag. Thank you.
That's correct. Good evening, Council. Dean Peterson, your Environmental Health Director. It's always a pleasure being in San Bruno. And on behalf of the Board of Supervisors, they'd like to thank you for being patient and waiting for the regional effort to go through and not moving ahead so that we could truly do on to that. As Lisa indicated, the main thing is keeping track so that we can make sure that they are selling the bags or not giving the bags away. The tracking aspect of it will help with putting together the information we need to help with the NPDES permit also, but it's mainly going to be to make sure that the stores are actually selling the bags and not giving them away.
What's wrong with the stores just giving the bags? I mean, they're recyclable bags, or they're reusable bags, or they're paper bags. What's wrong with that?
Right. So the environmental impact report took a look at paper bags, and really the result of that indicated that paper bags are not really any better than plastic bags. And so the 10-cent charge is to discourage the use of paper bags and is to encourage reusable bags. So what we found in other jurisdictions that were not charging, people were simply just going to paper, which increased paper, which increases transportation costs, transportation greenhouse gases, and then eventually decomposition of those bags.
Okay. Any other questions from staff? Michael?
Chair, thank you. So why not ban paper bags?
The environmental impact report did take a look at that as being one of the alternatives to ban paper bags. We felt, so this again is a regional effort. So we had 24 hands in this pot coming up with this policy. And at the end of the day, when we looked at the alternatives, it was determined that that would have been too big of a change. However, what we're seeing in San Jose and in Monterey County and in Sunnyvale and even San Francisco, people are not buying the paper bags. The 10-cent charge seems to be enough. They're either bringing the reusable bags in or they're carrying stuff out in their hands or in their carts. And so at this point, we felt that banning paper was just going a little bit too far, a little too drastic for the consumers at this point.
Okay. And if 10 cents is enough to discourage people from using the bags, why bump it up later?
The theory is that initially 10 cents is enough, but eventually we become immune or numb to 10 cents, and so we have the ability to change it up to 25 cents if that is happening. I do know that the City of San Jose is actually considering not increasing theirs to 25 cents when it goes into it because they are having such an effect, and that would be an option that we could take a look at as we develop and look at more information out there.
And at that point, when it gets bumped, it's no longer a cost recovery for the sellers, but rather it's strictly as a deterrent.
That's true. It truly is a deterrent at that point, yes.
But then the increased fee would still stay with the business owners.
It would, yes.
Okay. Could be a money-making venture for them. I also had a question about, it specifically identifies a thickness of plastic that would be considered, the ban would apply to things that are, to bags that are less than 2.25 mils thick. And could a retailer potentially go to a 3 mil bag and sidestep this, this regulation?
Absolutely they could, and that's the reason that in the ordinance there's a minimum charge of 10 cents on either a paper or a reusable bag.
Okay.
So that thickness of the bag is considered reusable, and that was the loophole that we closed because that was happening in San Jose and in Sunnyvale where stores were simply going to a thicker plastic bag and giving that away for free. So the 10 cents is still there to discourage that.
Okay, so that's, it's still an option for them.
It's still an option, and because we do look at those thicker bags as being a viable bag, because consumers use those over and over and over, they're not the thin ones that tear fairly easily. So they are considered a reusable bag.
Okay, thank you.
Through the chair. I had some questions on that line of the 10 cents to 25 cents, and also there's obviously critics that would say it's more energy and jobs and all that with the paper bags going away from plastic. That's just what the critics will say that we've watched on the news. So I don't know how we answer that as far as it takes more energy for that. Maybe I'll let you answer that first. I had another question on fines.
Sure. Lisa, do you mind if I take the question?
I apologize.
So,
Lisa or whoever, you
that's
determine.
fine. Thank you very
Your
much.
call.
through the mayor. On the energy use, that was something that was looked at in the EIR, and it was evaluated to be determined on how much energy use was going to happen. At the end result, with the use of reusable bags, there is an overall reduction in energy use. As far as the job aspect of it, looking at it, pretty much every company out there that makes plastic bags or paper bags also makes a reusable bag. We also see this as an ability by reusable bags for local cottage industry, for my aunt to make them and sell them at the farmer's market. So we see an ability to have more of a local business aspect to it by having reusable bags made local in the community.
And then on the fines within this, obviously, there are fines that are $100 for the first violation, $200, and $500. So this is run and done by the county, who actually does enforcement. So my question to that is, how much does this cost? So how much more additional cost to the county is it to go ahead and go out and we'll say, look for violations?
Right.
And if a business is not charging the dime, are they also fined similar to this?
Like all of our ordinances that we do, we're really there about compliance. We're not there to fine and enforce. Fines will only come into place if we have recalcitrant businesses that truly do not listen to our consultations and do not, make the efforts to move forward. Those fines would be retained by the county. And as we have in other cities that have adopted our ordinances by reference, the commitment the county has is if we end up fining businesses within San Bruno, that money would then go back into outreach into that specific area. So we would then redouble our efforts to outreach into the areas. Does that answer your question, sir?
So the initiation is to educate and try to reach out and communicate.
Absolutely,
and not just
absolutely.
go.
I mean, that amount of fines, quite frankly, the efforts we would need to do to collect those fines are much greater than the fines themselves. And so it's really there because we need fines and ordinances, but it's all about compliance and working with the businesses like we have done in all of our other programs within environmental health.
Is there any idea of what that cost is to the county to educate, outreach, implement, oversee?
It is within my budget. It's within my pollution prevention program. The funding, because that has been asked where the county is getting the funding to be able to provide this. There's really no additional staff for this because we already have staff out in the field looking at different items, so it adds on to it. But the county receives a certain portion, a certain percentage of tipping fees that go across the Ox Mountain landfill that help to fund programs for programs that keep things out of the landfill. And so we're able to use some of that money to fund the outreach for whether it's our polystyrene ordinance or the bag ordinance.
And I appreciate all the questions. So, and if somebody did not charge the dime, there would be a potential violation if they continued?
It would be a violation. Again, yes, there would be. And so we would work with them and find out the reasons why they couldn't and get them into compliance.
Okay, that's all my questions for now.
Good. Can I ask one last while he's up? Is there any record of an organ or a jurisdiction that implemented a recycling program for single-use bags, plastic bags?
The state of California has been trying to encourage citizens to recycle plastic bags for almost a decade now, and that rate is around 5%. It just does not seem to be working. The only city that I know that allows it into their curbside is, I believe it's Mountain View or possibly Santa Clara. And other than that, there's no other recycling that's allowed curbside.
Maybe not necessarily curbside, and maybe not just locally, but nationally. Is there any program that you know of that, they instigated a recycling program where various ways that people can come in and recycle the bags or?
Again, the only one I'm very familiar with is the California one, and that's where you can bring these bags back to the grocery stores, and they're required by law to collect them from the citizens. And that is only showing a 5 to 8% recycling rate, so that just does not seem to be working.
Yeah. But that wasn't really a strict ordinance, or there wasn't any?
It's a state law requiring the grocery stores of certain size to have a program to take the bags back and to advertise that they can. So you'll see a sign outside of the grocery stores indicating bring your bag back, but that's really all that.
But not at this level of implementation.
Correct, not at this level.
Thank you.
Correct. We see this as being unfortunately a local effort that needs to be happened. We'd prefer it to be California or federal, but it has to be local.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, Dean. This time I'd like to open the public hearing. Anyone from the public like to make a comment on this item? Mr. Rico?
Robert Rico, I have a question for Dean. I got at Christmas some disposable recycled bags or disposable plastic bags that are supposed to decompose out over 8 months or whatever. How do they work into the overall program? Hypothetically, if the grocery store or whatever was to find a supplier that did their single-use bag out of a decomposable or compostable bag, would that fit in, or would that still be not acceptable?
Through the mayor, thank you for that question, because it is a question that comes up. It's a question we looked at is why are we including compostable bags with the plastic bags? And there's really two reasons for it. The one thing is for a compostable bag to truly decompose, it needs to be in the right environment. And that is not a backyard composting bin. That is going to be at a compost facility. And in speaking with Recology and a number of the other curbside composting, is their facilities just really aren't capable of taking that material in. And so when we look at that, is we then look at how does these bags act in the environment, and a compostable plastic bag and a petroleum-based plastic bag acts exactly the same in the environment, clogging the storm drains, getting into trash inceptors, clogging a machine. It is not going to decompose in the environment. It needs to be in a composting facility.
Any of the members of the public like to address us about this issue? If I close the public hearing, you're going to be precluded from discussing this with us any longer. Any action?
Second.
Close the public hearing.
Motion
Second.
Second to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Discussion or action by the council? Irene?
Well, As you know, the Beautification Task Force, through their Operation Clean Sweep, have supported this by giving out reusable bags for the last 8 years, and we will continue to do so. So if you, after this ordinance passes, the first Saturday in May, if you want to come to Operation Clean Sweep and help, we will hand out a bag for you, a reusable bag. So unless there's other comments, I would like to introduce the resolution. Oh, sorry.
Through the chair.
Michael. Thank you. I think this is a good idea, and in reading just the history of this, I think a number of countries have done this on a national level. A lot of the cities are doing it, and clearly something we need to address. I did speak with the city manager earlier, and I had some questions about outreach. I believe we haven't had much feedback from the local retailers, but I was curious to know who we had contacted at the larger chains, and if we had heard anything back in terms of their ability to comply.
I'm going to ask Lisa to respond more directly, but I did check on that issue and was advised that in every case where we had the opportunity to identify a direct contact, somebody local, obviously, that we did so. In addition to that, we are working with the Chamber of Commerce, as Lisa indicated, to host a business informational session, and we're outreaching to Tanforan, but we will certainly, over the next days and weeks, should it be the council's direction to proceed, then we will redouble our efforts to make sure that the people here in San Bruno who have some responsibility for the operation of the business are adequately informed. Make sure that that outreach is provided directly to each of the local businesses to any extent that we haven't already done that.
We did do direct mail to all businesses in our business license listing, so that does also include businesses that would be exempt for the ordinance one, make sure everybody was aware of it. And then as Ms. Jackson mentioned, we're going to do direct visits. I spoke to the manager at Molly Stone, and they were already aware of it. I've spoken to other retailers, they're already aware of it. I think it really helps. It's the county-wide effort, so a lot of those larger businesses are already aware of it from their other facilities.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Ken or Rico?
Well, I'm just gonna, I had a long dissertation I wanted to explain, and I'm gonna say I don't like it, but then again, when recycling came about, I didn't like that, and I am a very avid recycler. I actually pulled a bunch of plastic bottles out of a bin the other night because I just can't.
Somebody else's bin? Or?
Someone else's bin, because it was not in the appropriate bin.
That's what the police call us for.
I thank the Beautification Task Force because I still have that reusable bag, and I have converted. But to eliminate plastic bags, to me, without going by the wayside as far as our recycling programs from many years back and everything, it would have been just as easy for me to say I can take the plastic bags and then they can be recycled, and I can put those plastic bags in another container. They don't take up a lot of space. I mean, we stuffed them in paper towel holders, for years. I just don't like the idea that we're eliminating. I mean, and to say that single-use carry bags comes the highest percentage of litter, which is unsightly. So does this mean that there's not going to be any more litter? What's left? Paper. So is that what we're going towards? I was going to make a statement and vote no on this, but I think I'm in favor of it, but I just don't like the way we went about it, and I just wanted to make that point, and I'm glad that there's no single-use bag manufacturers that are going to go out of business because of this, that they have also converted. Okay, that's my point.
Rico?
My point was similar to Councilmember Salazar's, because I was wondering, and I did ask the city manager what kind of feedback or response we've had from the community. I know the objective is Earth Day, but I'm worried about San Bruno's Day in the sense of, is 3 months enough time? We're going to have meetings on the 16th and the 17th. Not saying not everybody will welcome this with open arms, but if that's not the case, to me, when we introduce an ordinance, it's because staff has recommended, and it's because the council has taken the action to say, this is what's happening. And now make the necessary changes or what you need to do in order to operate your business or the community appropriately. Doesn't mean we can't introduce the ordinance and not keep the April date or not read the second reading and postpone that. My concern is it's always the cart before the horse, and I had wished that we had reached out a little bit sooner to the community, the businesses that are affected, as in the styrofoam. I think we realized that we had to postpone that a little bit. We had to get educated. There was an issue of course, the type of products that they had available to them in lieu of the ones they were currently using. So, though I'm not enjoying everything I see here and have some concerns, you know, I'm going to go ahead and support the introduction, but I am concerned and do want to hear the feedback that we get from the community on the 16th, 17th, and any calls that the clerk may receive or information that she gets, so that we're appraised, because maybe this April date, Earth Day, is a noble reason to have it, but I want to make sure it's right for San Bruno.
Anyone else? I think this is a very good thing. This is a very long time coming. Should have come a lot sooner, and that's my dissertation. Irene?
Do you want more dissertation?
No, I want a motion.
Well, I move to waive the first reading.
Second.
Is there a second?
Mr.
Motion
Mayor, if we can
yes.
interrupt for just a second. The suggestion is that you adopt the resolution first and then subsequently introduce the ordinance,
Okay.
just to have it go in the right order.
See, I was right.
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'll introduce the adopt the ordinance.
Sorry, just to clarify.
Yes.
So
Okay.
Clarify.
the first action is you're adopting the resolution making the CEQA findings.
I see. Okay.
And then the
Let's
second
start
action
over
would
again.
be to introduce the resolution.
All right.
Or excuse
I'd
me,
like
the
to
ordinance.
adopt the resolution.
No,
Maybe we should
introduce
postpone
resolution.
for a couple
Introduce
meetings or something?
resolution. I'm totally confused.
Could we go back and I
We
get
need a
who
motion.
seconded
Well, a motion first, and then we introduce.
the motion for the waiving the first reading? You,
No, he
No.
said I did that wrong.
okay.
Let's try it over
Withdraw
again. That
that.
was my fault. I apologize.
But
Okay.
Carol's
So the-
asking about closing the public hearing.
Oh, we did that already.
Right.
The
You
public
made
hearing
that
has been
motion.
closed.
Was that you?
No.
Close the public hearing was myself.
Yeah.
Okay. We're
Yes,
stepping
you
way
closed
back.
the public hearing and you seconded. I got that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
All right,
Okay.
Mark, what's the procedure?
So, so the first action is to make a motion on the resolution that you have in your packet that adopts the CEQA findings.
Okay.
Okay,
move
so
to
since
approve.
it's a, okay.
Make a
So don't-
motion
yeah,
to approve the findings.
Okay, but it's a resolution, we always adopt it. Okay.
No, we'll do that after that.
Yeah,
All right.
first
it's a
make
little
a motion.
confusing in the packet, I
I'm going to make a motion
apologize.
to do
Yeah.
what Mark said.
I will second that.
Okay, the motion is second to
To
Adopt
Adopt
the
the
findings.
resolution making the CEQA findings.
all right,
Yes.
adopt the resolution with the CEQA findings. Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so
Okay.
carried.
And the
Now you
second
want-
action would be to introduce the ordinance.
Okay. I'd like to introduce the ordinance.
Vice Mayor O'Connell.
Aye.
Councilmember Medina.
Aye.
Councilmember Ibarra.
Aye.
Councilmember Salazar.
Aye.
Mayor Ruane.
Aye.
Okay.
That's it?
Mr. Mayor, if I might
Yes.
respond briefly to one of the council members' comments about interest in hearing what the business and resident feedback is. We will certainly provide that information to the city council, and I would just note on a procedural comment, and that is that should the city council determine that you would like to see additional outreach made, that could certainly be direction from this city council prior to the second reading and adoption, final adoption of the ordinance taking place. So that additional opportunity is certainly always at your pleasure, and we will provide you with a update on the information that is both shared with the businesses as well as any feedback that we receive from them and from the public on the 16th and the 17th.
Okay.